This video is brought to you by Cracks Only. Check out the link in the video description below to get to their website and check out their latest products. Trust me, you do not want to miss them.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to United View. Hope everyone is doing very well. Yes, we are back for another press conference reaction here live as Erik ten Hag has spoken to the assembled media at Carrington ahead of the FA Cup fourth round trip to Newport County. Yes, League Two's Newport County. You can see on the sidebar, match preview coming out for that game tonight, 6 p.m. Of course, we'll be live for the match view, 4 p.m. for our 4:30 kickoff on Sunday as well. But to be honest with you, we're going to be talking quite a bit, I suppose, in this stream about something outside of Manchester United, and that is Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp. His announcement, or the announcement that was made by Liverpool, that Jurgen Klopp will be stepping down as Liverpool manager at the end of the season. And as one would expect, being Liverpool's greatest rivals, Manchester United, Erik ten Hag was asked about Jurgen Klopp in today's press conference, talking about his initial reaction to the Liverpool manager leaving after 9 years. In addition to that, he was asked about some of the reasons that Jurgen Klopp has given for the reason to step down, citing a sort of lack of energy and a bit of burnout, what have you. So we'll be bringing you those quotes, we'll be bringing you those questions, those reactions as well. Also, he spoke about a variety of other topics as well. Spoke about going to a lower league side in the FA Cup, his thoughts on that. Altay Bayindir set to make his Manchester United debut, confirmed on Sunday in the FA Cup fourth round as well. Also, he spoke about if we were going to be seeing any transfer activity, in particular in the striking department, after Anthony Martial has been struck down with an injury requiring groin surgery. So is there going to be any strikers, or is FFP just too great of an obstacle to overcome? We'll be chatting about it all. So be sure to smash the like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner. Just in terms of general thoughts before we get into the press conference with Jurgen Klopp. I mean, it's on the thumb, when the era's come to an end. I have seen some people, shall we say, over-celebrating the fact that that's got anything to do with Manchester United and Erik ten Hag, which, of course, clearly it does not. It has nothing to do with Manchester United and Erik ten Hag. It's not as if this was forced at our hand by any stretch of the imagination. I think almost in the same way that when Sir Alex Ferguson retired, other clubs rejoiced because they felt a sense of, maybe, they're not going to be as good, basically. And that's kind of similar when it comes to Jurgen Klopp. I mean, rivalries to one side, he is certainly in Liverpool recent history. I mean, he's one of their greatest managers of all time. You look at the condition that he picked the club up in 2015. I say picked the club up in, they just come off Brendan Rodgers, the season prior, running it close for the title, bottled the title really. But what he's gone on to achieve, he's won everything, certainly. And had he not been around during a period of time in which that, where Manchester City and Pep Guardiola utterly dominated, he'd probably won more league titles, in honesty. Thank God they didn't, because they'd be probably way ahead of us now when it came to league titles and all that. But nevertheless, it's massive news. It's huge news. We'll have shockwaves going through the Premier League. And as a rival fan, it's great in the sense of I hope Liverpool go through what we've gone through when a great manager of ours left. And it's not just obviously Klopp leaving, it's Klopp, sporting director, the whole backroom staff. So it's a proper big reset for them, certainly. But they're different comparisons, of course, because I was talking to Flex about this on the phone before we went live, that when Sir Alex Ferguson and David Gill left, they also left, an aging squad. Yes, the squad had just won the Premier League, but Paul Scholes retired, Ryan Giggs was towards the end of his career, and Vidic and Ferdinand, they were kind of on their last legs as players. Patrice Evra, even though in fairness, when he left to go to Juventus, he did very well, got to Champions League final. But it was an aging team, and frankly, an overachieving team, really, wasn't it? Whereas that's kind of the opposite with this Liverpool team. They're a young team. They've just done a rebuild, so you would think that team there is ready to go for the next 3 to 4 years, something like that. I think there'll probably be a departure of Mo Salah in the summer because by all accounts he signed a contract in 2022 on the grounds of Jurgen Klopp signing a new contract, and I think there's the expectation he's probably going to go to Saudi, but probably for a lot of money, so they'll have money to spend as well. So Similar situations, but not similar situations, I think, with Manchester United and Sir Alex Ferguson leaving as well. But as I mentioned, we'll get into more of that with Erik ten Hag as he was asked the questions in the press conference too. Let's see what people are saying in the chat here at the moment. Skiliano says, Klopp leaving is potentially a double-edged sword. Yes, it's great for United that he's gone, but if Erik ten Hag is fired, then United are competing with Liverpool for a new manager, and Liverpool will appeal more. Basically saying, well, actually, in the new manager market, maybe United will struggle. Although I think most people assume Xabi Alonso is going to go there, right? I know in his press conference today, he's been like, oh, I haven't really thought about it, but he would appear to be the heir apparent, one would think. And look, that's a young manager with a young squad. We shall see. But he's doing a fantastic job at Bayer Leverkusen at the moment. Whether that will translate into other jobs, you never know. Jurgen Klopp, when he went to Liverpool, already had big success winning league titles with Borussia Dortmund, getting Champions League finals with Borussia Dortmund, and also done a really good job at Mainz previously, hadn't he, as well? So it certainly is very interesting. What else are people saying here as well? Imran says Xabi Alonso to Liverpool. Simon saying Graham Potter to Liverpool. Hey, maybe they take that Graham Potter bullet for us. Callum says Liverpool have competent owners and manager does not run everything like Fergie did. It may be a lower quality manager, so some kind of downturn, but I don't see a fall nearly as big. That's going to be the interesting thing, isn't it? That's going to be the interesting thing, is to see what kind of drop off, if there is a drop off, to Liverpool, because as I said, they're similar situations in terms of big iconic managers departing. Not that Jurgen Klopp, in my opinion, is anywhere near Sir Alex Ferguson, obviously not, but the point being is very influential big managers and a lot of change, but the squads they're leaving behind are kind of a little bit different, in terms of age, I think, as well. So it's going to be very, very curious. Nevertheless, that was the first question put to Erik ten Hag, because, of course, it was really the news that was just breaking prior to Ten Hag having his press conference. So he was asked, Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp is leaving at the end of the season. What is your reaction to that? Erik ten Hag had the following to say. He said, it's no good for the Premier League, so he has made an era there. See, era's come to an end. He built the club. He brought the club back where they belong, so congrats on that. He has done an amazing job in Liverpool. And look, that's all you can really say, to be honest, about it, isn't it? I mean, like I said, it's a strange reaction from an opposition fan, isn't it? I've got a couple of friends of mine, I know, that are Liverpool fans, and the sort of general reaction that I've got from them is just really one of shock. They're like, wow, I did not see that coming. Just because of they've just done this rebuild, and because they're doing so well in all these competitions at the moment, like it felt like, oh, why would... Maybe that's the point, is you leave on top, you don't want to wait too long, which is something that he said as well. But he has done an amazing job at Liverpool. Obviously, like I said, as a United fan, to hopefully see Liverpool do shit. I mean, it's me growing up, right? When I was growing up, Liverpool were rubbish. That's what it was. Man United were amazing. Man United won the league every season. They won trophies every season. Liverpool were shit. I say shit, but you know what I mean. Not good. They were like us. They were like us now, which was win a trophy here or there. They might have some good seasons, some bad seasons. Yes, they won the Champions League in 2004 in Istanbul, and that wasn't even a great Liverpool team really that season. Right? It was not a great Liverpool team, but they weren't really going super close to winning league titles or anything like that. And then particularly in the sort of the turn of the 2010s, that period of time, the Roy Hodgson eras, God, they were just a joke, weren't they? An absolute joke. And that was great as a United fan. Like, for them, when we played them in sort of the mid-2000s, if they happened to beat us, which sometimes happened, Anfield or Old Trafford, that was that's their result of the season. Whereas we would brush it off, like, we didn't care. We got league titles to go for. We got Champions League finals to play, and we've got, cup finals to play, and who cares about that? It's great to win, obviously, but it's not the be-all or end-all of the season. And over the last, 10 years, certainly the roles have reversed, haven't they? Liverpool, they're the ones competing for league titles near enough every season. They've only won one in Klopp's era. Run close City a couple of times, gone to the final day a couple of times as well. And won Champions Leagues, got to a Champions League final. They got to, 3 Champions League finals as well? So there's no sort of denying the force that Liverpool have been in European football and in domestic football during the period. And whereas it comes to Manchester United, what have we done? during Jurgen Klopp's tenure, so what, 2015 to now, what have United done? We won Europa League, we won FA Cup because he was in for Van Gaal's last season. We won FA Cup, we won League Cup, Europa League, and the League Cup again with Ten Hag. That's it. And during that time, Liverpool won everything. And probably should have won a lot more, with the finals that they got to and how close they ran the league as well. So the roles have certainly reversed. And as an opposition fan, you hope, because that's all you can do, is that football is cyclical. And now with Klopp gone, and United with INEOS and all this kind of stuff, we're on the way back up and Liverpool could be back being rubbish again. Because I've noticed I've turned into my father. That's what's happened. I've turned into my dad. And what I mean by that is, when I was younger and during Sir Alex Ferguson prime years, my dad would always say to me, when we talk about Liverpool, he'd go, but I tell you what, in the 1980s, they used to win everything. European Cups, league titles, they used to just win, they used to dominate. And I'll be like, shut up, granddad. You don't know what you're talking about. I don't see Liverpool winning nothing. Liverpool bang average. You don't know what you're talking about. And now, when I talk to family members or I talk to, like my nephew or my nieces or whatever, that haven't even been old enough to see United really win a league title or a Champions League, I sound like I could tell you what, we used to win everything. Oh, yeah, we used to win everything. Champions League, Premier Leagues, it used to be, yeah. And they go, I don't know what you're talking about. I've got no point of reference for that. So it's funny how football works, isn't it? Certainly. But yes, Jurgen Klopp leaving it at the end of the season. He does talk about Jurgen Klopp a bit more later on. But we are here to do it's a press conference for the FA Cup. So he was asked questions about the FA Cup, particularly when it came to the goalkeeper. Would Altay Bayindir be making his debut? And Erik Ten Hag confirmed that indeed he was going to. He said he will be in goal. And then he was asked, what can we expect from him? Ten Hag said, what can we expect from him? He waits for his chance, but he is experienced, played in a big club in Turkey under big pressure. He knows how to deal with it. We were convinced. So we are looking forward to Sunday. Altay is waiting for this moment, and this is his moment. Now, the next question actually was probably best to do it in this block. The next question was from Simon Stone, who said to Ten Hag, did you have any thoughts of not picking him for this game? Because these games can be, banana skin games, a lower league team, away from home, small ground, intense pressure. And I did like the response when he was asked if Bayindir could deal with the pressure. He said, you have been in Fenerbahce? Pressure. Also Turkey, that is always big pressure. Also for the national team, so he knows how to deal with it. Basically saying that, you play in Fenerbahce, you know how to deal with pressure, which is a pretty good answer as it goes. His point being is that the atmosphere, if you ever go to Fenerbahce or you go to like any sort of real big Turkish side, Galatasaray, Beşiktaş, Fenerbahce, that kind of atmosphere, that's the definition of a hostile atmosphere, isn't it? That's the definition of going, if you can handle it in that environment, you should be all right. But, you can argue that it's not totally comparable because, yes, when you play in Turkey in those bigger stadiums, there's a hostile atmosphere and that can absolutely swallow you up. But there is something different, isn't there, about that couple of 1,000-seater stadium in a League Two side where, it's just different, isn't it? And then that's also as well, that's why people love the FA Cup, is because you have those kind of matches. You can see it on the match preview sidebar right there. That's the ground. It's tiny, and you've got these superstar players that are on hundreds of £1,000s a week playing on, pitches that aren't what they're used to and having atmospheres that they're not used to and being made difficult for them. That's the magic of the cup, is that particularly if you're the smaller side and you're the home side in that situation, that's almost like the leveler, isn't it? Is that you can make that somehow try and make the difference. But I think Erik Ten Hag brings a good point about managing the atmosphere and the pressure in that situation. He's certainly, one would hope that he'd be able to do that, because otherwise you shouldn't be a Man United goalkeeper. And what were you doing when you played in Fenerbahce in Turkey all those years? As far as him playing, I'm happy to see him play. Of course, I mean, he should have played. This is the one thing I don't understand. I could almost understand with Andre Onana. I could understand him wanting Onana to play against Spurs because he thought, while it's a big match, Spurs, they're a top 6 rival, so we want to have the strongest team possible for that game. I can get that, but I don't get why Bayindir couldn't play against Wigan. Why? Why was there any reason for him not to play? Was that game too big? Could he not handle the pressure of Wigan, but he can handle it against Newport County? I mean, I know Onana's still at AFCON. That's the reason why. Because let's face it, if Andre Onana was available, he'd be playing against Newport County. But I don't see why Bayindir couldn't play against Wigan. That to me still doesn't make any sense. And frankly, when it comes to Onana, it's going to be very interesting to see, is there going to be that much of a drop-off? Is there going to be that much of a difference? To Onana's credit, when we played Wigan, first couple of minutes, Onana made an important save, didn't he? Wigan found their way through, and then after that, it was just a real lack of quality in that game. Really, really bad, actually. And we won it quite comfortably in the end. But I think Bayindir should be fine on Sunday. And the problem is because, and this is no disrespect to Newport County, but the game is so against such a smaller opposition that there's kind of really no chance of, I don't think anyway, unless something really dramatic happens, but you would feel like there's no chance of him putting in a level of performance that when we face Wolves as our next match in the Premier League, I think, isn't it? When we play Wolves, that it's going to be like, we have to play Bayindir. Oh my God, he was so amazing in that game because we're expected to dominate. We're expected to, he's expected not to have to do all that much. He's not expected to be under all that much pressure. In fact, if he is under pressure and he is very busy, then something drastically is going wrong in that game. That shouldn't happen. Look, football's a funny thing and it might end up that way, but I'm glad to see him play. I don't think it's going to change. His status in the United squad. Ten Hag said he's going to start, so he's definitely going to play. But I don't think it's going to be a case of, when Onana comes back, Onana has to worry about his position. I think that point, the whole AFCON, debacle involving Andre Onana is evidence that Andre Onana's position is not under threat at Manchester United. I mean, we bent over backwards to accommodate this guy to play in the games against Wigan and in particular the Spurs one, and then paid to have him fly out to the Ivory Coast, and then the private jet was cancelled when he got there, so he had to drive, and then still didn't play that first game, played the second game, lost, dropped for the third game. It's just the Andre Onana experience with Cameroon just continues. I mean, if I was a Cameroon fan, supporter, or was from Cameroon, just the feeling of sort of disrespect towards the national team and the competition, I'd be furious with that. But then I'd just be furious just the whole thing is just a complete farce, isn't it? It really, really is. And to the point that even Bayindir, Altay Bayindir starting against Newport County in the FA Cup fourth round shouldn't even be a big story, should it? That should just be par for the course. In years gone by, you had your cup goalkeeper, they just play, not a big deal, whatever, who cares? The fact that it is like a headline, or the fact that it is like a big story, or somewhat of a story, just goes to show how crazy the whole Andre Onana situation is, because it shouldn't even be that big of a deal, but it is. So, yeah, very, very, very odd, but indeed Bayindir starting. By the way, I missed this out because it was before I went live. Now, I'm going to apologise from the get-go because my pronunciation is going to be rubbish for this, but I'm going to try. I'm going to go with Sabu Sisso has joined the UV Members Club. Apologies if I probably have butchered the pronunciation, but big up to you. Welcome. As you would be able to see on the sidebar, you can watch the latest episode of UV Raw if you're a new member. The latest episode of UV Raw, of course, is the Fleck Mackerel incident. Need I say any more? Need I say any more? I mean, those that have watched it in the chat will let you know what you're missing out on. I think it's an all-timer for a UV Raw. There's going to be a new episode of UV Raw coming soon as well, which is Josh versus myself playing EAFC for the first time. That's the only time I've played it, and I played Josh in a game. We got some footage from that, so that's going to be an episode of UV Raw dropping soon. In addition to that, you get your badges, you get your emojis, which there are plenty of emojis. I'm sure the members will fill up the chat with the emojis right now. And also, you can call in to the full-time view after every single game, and you can chat to me, you can chat to the UV community, and have your say on the game. Of course, there will be an episode of the full-time view after the game on Sunday. As you can see right there, that is UV Raw, episode 32. Look at that screen grab. You can see Flex holding his mackerel right there, with the look of disgust on his face as well. it's well worth a watch. Absolutely. So there you go. How many likes are we currently at the moment? We've nearly got 500 people watching, less than 100 likes. I tell you what we can do. Because sometimes with these press conference reaction streams, a lot of people like to watch them sort of after the fact, maybe tomorrow or Sunday building up to the game, that kind of stuff. I think we can get a strong ratio going. I think that today we can have a very strong ratio where we're like, I tell you what, there were 500 people watching, but there were like 250, 300 likes. Can we even, that would be incroyable if we can pull that off. So if you haven't already, click the like button and be sure to subscribe as well. There's less than 100 subscribers to go until 160,000. So if you're one of those people that watches all the time but just forgot to subscribe, that kind of stuff does happen. I do that quite a lot. Be sure to click the subscribe button as well. Where were we at next? We were going to talk about, the trip to a sort of lower league team in the FA Cup. This kind of question bothers me a little bit, to be honest with you. So Erik ten Hag was asked by Simon Stone, is this game a bit different for you as a manager? Most of your cup games are at Old Trafford. How will you feel? Are you going to thrive under that intensity of sort of facing a smaller team away from home in the FA Cup? What about that? And Erik ten Hag said, and I suppose rightfully so, also in the Netherlands, we have a cup. We play games against lower class teams. Always when you go as a big club against a low class team, how you approach that. He also said, when it was asked to him, so is it the same? He said, a big club against a lower class team, you have to approach that. You don't underestimate any opponent, so we won't. And I get it. Look, I get the sort of magic of the FA Cup is these sort of ties, isn't it? The Manchester United making the trip to Newport County. It's a great story. Of course it is. Having a League Two side at home welcome Man United, or when you get to face a team that was in, if it wasn't Newport, it was going to be Eastleigh. They're in the conference, right? They're in the National League. Of course, that's a fantastic story. But as Ten Hag points out, it's not. Whilst it is the oldest cup competition in the world, it's not, unique in the sense of big teams facing lower teams. Like that. That's kind of, what happens. I mean, for instance, if you look at Ajax this season, one of the big stories of Ajax this season, and there have been a plenty, was they got knocked out of the cup by an amateur team. Wasn't even a professional team. They got knocked out of that cup competition. So, yeah, that happens in lots of different countries. But I understand the question from Simon Stone is that sometimes, with managers coming in from overseas, and whilst they know the history of the FA Cup, once they are at some of these smaller grounds, they go, wow, like I wasn't expecting that, or that atmosphere, I didn't really prepare for that, and it caught us off guard kind of thing. But I don't think there's going to be, I don't think it's going to be a case of Erik ten Hag being like, I played I played the academy team. Man United are going to play a strong team on Sunday because they've got nothing else to go for. They've got to build up momentum. They've got to build up wins. Same when we played Wigan in the FA Cup. He played the strongest team he basically possibly could. And that's what he's going to do at the weekend, because we're not rotating anyone for anything, are we? So he's going to play the strongest side, and if we don't get a result, heaven forbid. Can you imagine what the reaction would certainly be to that? Now, this was an interesting question. It was about the transfer window, if we were expecting to see any kind of business. As I've said quite a few times on the most recent transfer views, certainly the last couple of days, the information that we had was that no incomings whatsoever, just FFP, and the PSR is just so tight that Manchester United just have no money available to do anything, let alone a loan or even a permanent transfer. It's just not going to happen. And then that was later reported by The Athletic. Samuel Luckhurst asked Erik ten Hag in the press conference, with Martial now being out, are you looking to get another striker in? Are you going to go with the players you've got? And Erik ten Hag, I thought, was quite candid, actually, when he was speaking about this. He said, I looked, but there is no space. There is no space for FFP to do something about this lack of quantity in the striker position. Of course, Rashford can play as a striker. We have some other alternatives, and it's clear that Anthony is out for a couple of months. It's a gap in our squad, clear. So, to be honest, pretty clear, pretty transparent by Erik ten Hag, going, we looked, we tried, we can't do anything. That's it. And it kind of lines up with reporting, I suppose, around Manchester United and around the transfer window, which is United had looked around to see if it was possible, and they had hoped that with the outgoings that we have seen in January, Donny van der Beek, Hannibal, Jadon Sancho, etc. And then maybe, Martial would go up permanently or something would happen regarding one of the other players, then maybe then it would be something that they could look at. But now that we're at the 26th of the month, only a few days left in the transfer window, it's just very, very apparent. It's just not on the cards at all. And Man United are walking a financial fair play tightrope. And to be honest with you, you don't really see that often from Erik ten Hag. I mean, I've covered all of his press conferences that he's done as Man United manager. And a lot of the time, he doesn't really sort of, go against the grain when it comes to... he plays his card close to the vest. Yeah, not chest, vest. But he was pretty honest there, going, we looked, we tried, can't do it. So we're going to have to go with what we got. And that means we're short. And usually, he doesn't really like to admit that kind of stuff. Usually, he'll go with, we've got plenty of good players. It's fine. It's not a problem. I'll go with Højlund and Rashford's more than enough. Yep, I believe in them. I've got full confidence in them. And he just went, nope, we would have wanted to do something, but FFP can't do it. We got Rashford, but it's a gap. It's clear. And it didn't really pull any punches when it comes to that. So don't expect any business. So that's when I say, like this morning, we covered the story about Callum Wilson reportedly being offered out to clubs, or if you hear any people say, shock transfer moves or last minute transfer business by United, it's just not true. It's just nothing. There's going to be a very, very quiet window for United, as it's quiet for a lot of people. You look across the Premier League. I spoke about it this morning on the Transfer View. I can't recall a time. I mean, someone can maybe let me know in the chat. I can't recall a time that the January transfer window has been sort of this quiet. We'd got used to it being actually quite active, hadn't we? And there's usually a big transfer near enough every year in the January window, whether it's last season Enzo Fernandez, or even for us Bruno Fernandes in the past, or when you look at Aubameyang was a January transfer window one for Arsenal, wasn't he? Who else are big January transfer windows? Of course, you can go back to Torres and Andy Carroll, right? They were big transfer spends. And for at the time, certainly, I mean, 50 million back then was a huge amount of money. Still is a lot of money now. But this window, that's just not been the case at all. And that's because of the FFP and the PSR. Juan Mata, obviously, as well. Yeah, that's one. Obviously, you could say January transfer signings in the past. I mean, Vidic and Evra, but they weren't that much money, were they, as well? So, we're just not going to do anything. So I think any reports that come out to suggest that we are just rubbish, really. They're just agents trying to get something going, get something together. And also, I think agents are already trying to sort of plant seeds for the summer as well, particularly like the Xerxes one, like I spoke about this morning. The Xerxes one, I think, is really interesting because to me, it seems like a giant advertising and marketing campaign to let everyone know that his client has a 40 million euro release clause that's active in the summer. It's going to happen in the summer. Don't worry. He's available 40 million in the summer. That's what it's going to be. Yeah, that's what it's going to be. So, any suggestion that we're going to be doing anything is a bit wide of the mark. And that's why, when it comes to the transfers in the future, I hope, this will still be the argument, the pushback for it, but when we're discussing transfers and transfer fees, if we say, I tell you what, that feels a bit high, I think United could or United should walk away from that deal, or they shouldn't spend that much on that player, let's not do the argument again of, who cares? Who cares? It's not your money. Why are you counting everyone's money? This is why. Because we find ourselves in situations like this where we go, ideally, we'd have enough for a loan, a cheap loan, and we can't. Why? Because in the past, we've spent stupid amounts of money on people that ain't worth it. And we've been, made for fools in the transfer market. And we can't sell anyone. Why? Because when we bought them in the first place, we put them on wages that are too high, and we can't sell them. It's a constant, never-ending cycle. And eventually, it will bite you in the ass. And firmly, just like Jaws, it is taking a chunk out of us right now. And that's the situation that we find ourselves in. And also, then on top of that, I suppose you could argue, looking at it from a glass half full point of view, INEOS can maybe say, well, it gives us more time to prepare and plan for the summer. We're not going to rush into anything in January because we can't, basically. So yes, no signings come the summer. The next question was that now that really, obviously we're out of the Carabao Cup, out of the Champions League, not going to win the league, obviously, does the FA Cup now have a greater importance because it's the last chance of silverware for United this season? And once again, Erik ten Hag was pretty candid in his response. He says it's the truth. But the league qualification for the Champions League, FA Cup is, as you say, probably is, fact, a last opportunity on the trophy, and we go for it. And it was interesting, and this is why sometimes it's frustrating that you can't show the footage, but you could tell it pained him when he was talking about that. You know, it was an honest truth when it came to out the Carabao Cup. You know, the finalists were already determined with that, Liverpool and Chelsea. You're out of the Champions League, finished bottom of your group. You're not even in Europe anymore. League, laughable. So FA Cup's your only chance, really, isn't it? And he was like, yeah, it is. Can't hide from it. That's the truth. Season has been rubbish in comparison to last season, particularly when we were fighting on all fronts. We're fighting on one. Like 2 if you count Champions League qualification, not as a trophy, but something you can achieve this season. And I cast my mind back to this time last year, because it was around this time last year, wasn't it, that we faced Arsenal at the Emirates. I recall it vividly. And going into that game, we had Palace before, didn't we? And that was 1-1. That's when Casemiro got booked. But there was a feeling of, I tell you what, if we beat Arsenal at the Emirates, we could be on for a title, like push for it. You know, this could be, because we weren't a million miles off at that point. And I was thinking, and obviously we didn't get the win that day, but I was thinking a year later, we're out of everything apart from the FA Cup. And it's crazy. It is crazy. And that is why I saw some people in the comments the other day were saying that Owen, don't be so harsh on Ten Hag, because last season we had negative results, but we still ended up with a trophy, FA Cup final, and finished third. And I thought, well, that's all well and good. Like, they pointed to the Liverpool one. I forget who it was that said that, but someone pointed out that it was yes, we lost Liverpool at 7-0 last season, but we still were very successful. I went, well, that's great, but that Liverpool result was actually after we'd already won a trophy last season. I don't, and this is when it gets back to sort of the manager and all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying, so you're saying, Owen, I'm not saying the players are without blame. Of course they are with blame. I'm not saying that everything's been great above Erik ten Hag, because it hasn't. I totally agree with that. I'm not saying that the transfer business hasn't been terrible, even though Erik ten Hag does have a hand in that. I'm not saying it's all him as well. But if you compare this season to last season, now that we're about halfway through, the drop-off is extraordinary. Extraordinary. And it's poor. It's very bad. And we're saying that the FA Cup's our last chance of a trophy this season, but hand on heart, genuinely, and you can let me know in the chat, hand on heart, do you think we get to the final again like we did last year? Do you think that happens? You could argue, you never know, luck of the draw, which I agree, as I always say, easier to win a cup competition than it is a league title, because the luck of the draw can go your way and you can get to the final or get to a semi-final, and then suddenly you're just a couple of games away from winning the trophy. So I agree with that. But we're hoping on that, aren't we? It's not a case of we're going, we'll face them in the FA Cup and we beat them. You know, that's the season, isn't it? That's the season for Man United. And I know that sounds very defeatist, but that is where we're at. My hope is, this is what I hope for us to happen in the second half of the season. My hope is that with the players coming back, Man United do get somewhere near, somewhere closer to some of the performances we were putting in last season in terms of fight. And in terms, because that's what I think is really, Man United got no fight this season. And you look at United in sort of the early days of Ten Hag last season, after the disastrous start against Brighton and Brentford, United had fight for a period of time. When we beat like Liverpool at home and when we played Arsenal at home, like United had proper grit and fight, and United don't have that. So I don't expect United's style of play to like drastically get better and get so far removed from what we're doing right now. I just don't think that's going to happen. But what I would like with these better players coming back, I'd like to see a level of intensity return. I'd like to see a level of fight return. And then hopefully performances can sort of improve and results can improve with that. And then let's see what happens for the remainder of the season. You never know. You can go on a bit of a run, not to win the title, but possibly get into a decent spot for Europe. But But that's kind of where we're at, and maybe, like I said, the FA Cup run can maybe hopefully come with it. But I think, like I've said a million times, I think regardless with that, and we're going to get onto INEOS in just a second, I think that conversation will happen regardless about what happens with United this season in terms of performances and results. But time will tell what that conversation actually looks like as well. What are people saying here in the chat? Austin Baker says, to quote Robbie, we're not going to do this. Ed says, I think we lose to any Premier League team we face in the Cup. I wouldn't say any Premier League team. Although, even the, like it used to be, well, if we play them at home, we'll win. That doesn't really work that way anymore, does it, with United? With some of the results this season, Bournemouth at home, Palace at home. But it depends on the draw, doesn't it? It depends. There was a reason people were happy we got Newport. There was a reason. It wasn't like, who cares? We're going to win anyway. It was, good. And that might come back to bite us. Let's be honest with it as well. Yes. Captain Caveman said we had to go through this at some point, so respect to Eric for coping really well. Gian says, the drop-off is because we have average players. FA Cup is about being lucky if you can't play well. We are an average team, so our league position is correct. Simon says there is only hope left. So, yeah, it's interesting. Skiliano says, no chance we get to the FA Cup final. As soon as we draw a top 10 Premier League team away from home, then it's over for us. Oh, that's the point, isn't it? That might not happen. You get through a couple of games. Man United had a great record of getting home cup ties last season, and we've played Wigan away, now Newport away. We might get a bit lucky again. And then we got to the FA Cup final last season for a penalty shootout, didn't we, against Brighton? That's the thing with cup competitions. It is just about getting through. It's not necessarily about playing well. So that's what we do have going in our favour, I think. But I think I'd love to know, I mean, not from I've got a problem, but I'd love to know what are the odds of Man United getting to the FA Cup final at this point in time? Because they can't be surely that high, can they? I don't know. Let's move on. Once again, Erik ten Hag was asked about Jurgen Klopp. Now, one of the reasons that Jurgen Klopp has cited for his decision to step down as Liverpool manager at the end of the season was saying that he'd run out of energy. And Erik ten Hag was asked, can you understand that? Here's what Erik ten Hag said. I can understand that. 9 years is a long time. I think it's a period by building up, achieving targets, but I also think setbacks and going into difficult periods. The Premier League is very intense. The combination with European club football, when you're there 9 years, it's a long period, and I can understand he is running out of energy, and that is one of his arguments to step down. So Erik ten Hag says he can understand that as well. I mean, look, the more time goes on, you realise just how much of an anomaly Sir Alex Ferguson is. And when you're living through it, and it's happening every year, every season, and you never think it's going to end, and it's been going on for 20 plus years during his tenure, you just go, this guy's just the best. He's amazing. And when people say to you during that period of time, you realise it will never be like this again, like this sustained, like this long term. And for this stretch of time, like just nobody will do that. And you go, yeah, whatever. And then when you're in someone else doing well, like when Jose first went to Chelsea and they win it a couple of years in a row, you go, well, this is it now, isn't it? Or Arsene Wenger when he goes to Arsenal and he wins it immediately, you go, oh, they're going to win it forever now. You think it's never going to end. And it does. And you realise that Jurgen Klopp's been at Liverpool for 9 years. Sir Alex Ferguson, what was it, 26? It will never happen again. It just won't. Like that just will never happen without the need to take a break or without the need to be like, I've got to reassess. Have that sustained level of success, never drop below like a third position. Because even during Jurgen Klopp's tenure at Liverpool, for the success that he's had last season, they finished 5th. They didn't even qualify top 4. That would never happen with Sir Alex Ferguson. Throughout his tenure, I mean, obviously, first couple of years were a bit shaky, but after that, once he got into his groove, never dropped below 3rd. Every season was just continued success. And again, that's over a huge amount of time, whereas in comparison, Jurgen Klopp, and in today's day and age, 9 years is a huge amount of time, massive amount of time. So, and he's not the only one. He's had to take breaks before. He took a break when he left Dortmund, before he went to Liverpool. Pep Guardiola took a sabbatical, didn't he, when he left Bayern Munich, before he went to Manchester City. So, we're you can only sort of keep looking back, can't you, to people like Sir Alex Ferguson. And it's not only, I suppose, the longevity that he had, because people, I suppose, have had longevity. Arsene Wenger was at Arsenal for a long time, but it's then mixed with that sort of just sustained tip-top level of success every single time. That is just, it would never be replicated. Never, ever, ever. Not, and certainly not in the Premier League or anything like that, or in anywhere. It's just not in today's day and age. I can't see it, because even you look at Pep Guardiola at City, and look who knows what's going to happen with Man City over the next couple of years, right? They might not even be in the Football League anymore. And I know Pep's been like, well, if we go out the Football League, I'm going to stick with them the whole time. Well, let's see, Pep, because I think it'll be very interesting watching Pep Guardiola in the National League or in the National League North, facing off against teams and still trying to play, tiki-taka football, or whether or not he'd go, well, maybe it's the right time to leave or something like that. I don't know. So there's no doubt you can't obviously discredit Jurgen Klopp, what he's done. It's incredibly successful. But like I said, when you still do compare it to Alex Ferguson and managers and people in life, I think everyone's experienced burnout. Maybe not the level like Jurgen Klopp's talking about, because that level of pressure is so intense. But that everyone gets burnt out. That's when you realize people like Sir Alex Ferguson, they're anomalies. They are the fraction of a percent. And I just don't know if that will ever be replicated. Look, even in the NFL, look at Bill Belichick. He's just leaving the Patriots, hugely successful, massively successful for a period of time, particularly with Tom Brady as his quarterback. But then the last few years, not so much. Couldn't sustain it with a new team, with new players, with a new generation. Alex Ferguson, that's what he did several times. Like, that again is incredible. With different players, different teams. During Ferguson's tenure there, he built how many teams? Like 3 or 4 different ones? Argument could be made, yes, he had the same sort of core with the class of 92. That's fair. But across sport, just never going to be replicated. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. In terms of that longevity and that level of success. And no drop-off. I'm not saying like success. Well, you had success, but you had, a couple of seasons here and there between that success where it was really rubbish. No. If a bad season for him was third, like, it's just, you can't, incomparable. And particularly, with some bad ownership towards the end as well. Absolutely. So, I know people, Liverpool fans, but it's not about Man United. I'm not saying it is. It's just a case of the more time goes on, and certainly I think I speak for myself, the older I get, the more you realise that you just go, and maybe the more the post-Ferguson era, you just realise how crazy that is, what he achieved. And to be honest, what we took for granted, because you just thought it's never going to end. And because we were so good, so great, that even post-Ferguson, don't worry, it's not going to be bad post-Ferguson. Yeah, it might not be, like Sir Alex, but we'll win a league title. Because that was the concern, wasn't it? Is that we would become a Liverpool. We'd go 30 years without winning a league title. And that was one of the big questions. Is that going to happen to United now? Are we going to go 30 years without winning a league title? Nah. Ain't going to happen. Look at what we got. Just won the league. We've got these players. We've got this stadium. Don't worry. It's not going to be a problem. 11 years later, no league title. we are rapidly closing in on halfway there to 30, my friends. Yeah, so it can happen. Absolutely, it can happen. No doubt about that. Certainly. So, yes, very, very, very interesting. Finally, and this is quite interesting. This is quite big news, actually. So he was asked, Jurgen Klopp, Erik ten Hag, about working with Omar Barada. Obviously, Omar Barada's been confirmed. Owen Siren's in the chat. I was thinking it's been too long. We've nearly made it through, 45 minutes? I was thinking, no, Owen Siren. 45 minutes? What kind of show am I delivering? Yeah, Owen Siren's in the chat. Omar Barada has been confirmed as the new CEO. Yeah, there you go. My style advisor. Boom. Owen Siren in the chat. I mean, the Owen Siren emoji, does it look like I've got a siren on my head, or does it more look like I've got a giant bow tie on my head, or just like a giant bow on my head? That's what I think it looks like. It looks like I've been gift wrapped, I think. You know, you've got one of some sort of weird novelty, like Christmas gift or something like that. Like when you go to Amazon, would you like it gift wrapped? And they've gone, yes. Would you like your Owen head gift wrapped? And they've gone, yes, please. Thank you very much. That's what it kind of looks like to me. I don't know. I don't know what you guys think. What's the feedback for the Owen Siren? I'm not sure. Been gift wrapped. As Rich says, it's the gift that keeps on giving. Very much. Very generous. Very generous. But yes, Omar Barada confirmed as Man United's new CEO. And Erik ten Hag was asked, what have you made of the first few weeks of the INEOS era? Of course, there have been all of those reports, haven't there, about how people have been so excited and enthused and happy with some of the meetings that INEOS, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, Sir Dave Brailsford have done at Manchester United. And it was quite interesting to see Ten Hag talk about how aligned they are on various things. Here's what he said. He said, it gives spirit in this whole club. Everyone notices this club is going into a period of changes, and it's because we want to achieve high targets. Standards have to change, and we started with this 1.5 years ago. He continued by saying, I'm sure INEOS and me are very aligned on this. We have to understand we have to change. We started that process last season with the dressing room, but also many departments. I am very happy to raise the standards, to collaborate more, and INEOS can have a big impact on that. So that's quite interesting. That is very, very interesting. Of course, the last time he was asked about INEOS, the announcement had just been made like a week or so prior, and he said, yeah, I've met with them, but not really, spoke that much in depth with them. Maybe still not completely ratified and signed off or anything like that yet. But I thought that was very interesting, saying that, yep, it gives energy. We're really happy. I'm really happy. I really like that the standards are being raised. It's what I've been saying, that the standards have to be raised. But the key thing, I suppose, out of all of that is he's saying me and INEOS are aligned. And that's one of the questions, wasn't it? Is how aligned is Erik ten Hag going to be? And how aligned is INEOS going to be with Erik ten Hag? Are they going to see eye to eye on everything? And I think, look, you can surely see eye to eye on certain issues like we want to get better. Of course, you're going to be aligned on that. We want standards to improve. He said that since day one when he came in, that he was there to raise standards and make sure that standards got raised. He said that on multiple different occasions. I think the key aspect is going to be, are they aligned on certain things? RE recruitment, considering that Ten Hag has a big involvement in that, certainly larger than other managers have at Manchester United in the past, in comparison to Solskjaer, Van Gaal, Mourinho, etc. How is that going to look? And I just think in general, I do think he is managing for his job between now and the end of the season. And I just don't think there is going to be that kind of blind faith, maybe, that some people think INEOS will have in Erik ten Hag. And I know people will, again, get very angry at that and push back at that. But I just think that's kind of the nature of the situation. I think that if between now and the end of the season, we pick up results, we start playing a bit better, and I'm not saying complete radical turnaround, but I'm saying we get closer to what we were doing last season, then I think there'll be a genuine conversation of, well, let's give Erik a go with what were the resources that we're bringing in, with these people that we're bringing in, Omar Barada, new sporting director, new head of recruitment, etc., and let's see if we can make it work. If performances and results remain how they've been throughout this season, then he's going to be in trouble. Like he just is. He's going to be in a spot of bother because he's the Manchester United manager. And if you finish, where are we currently in the league? We're 7th or 8th. Someone can remind me, although I could just type it in now, I suppose. We are, in terms of the league, we're 8th. If we finish 8th in the league, irrespective of whatever you say about Erik ten Hag and things that have happened to us this season, with injuries and obviously with the acquisition and all that kind of stuff, and look, they're valid things to point out, that still just isn't good enough. It's just not. And some of the performances and the results just haven't been good enough. And before people will say, oh, but get rid of the players first, the players are going to go. I think a lot of them are. I think that, well, look, we know people for sure. People like Martial are definitely going to go. As of right now, Varane's going to go. Not that he's the biggest problem. So you're saying, oh, and Varane's the biggest problem? No, I'm just saying that that's an example of, I think people are going to go in the summer. And I think there's going to be a big overhaul. And there will be a conversation about Erik ten Hag. Of course there will be a conversation about him. Whether he's doing well, whether he's doing okay, whether he's doing badly, there will always be a conversation on him, because that's only natural when you've got new people coming in, new executives coming in, that they'll be having those chats. I'm sure those chats are probably happening already. As I said before, when it came to Omar Barada, when you're chatting with him, when Dave Brailsford or Jim Ratcliffe's talking to him, when the Glazers are talking to him, they'll say, what do you think about us this season? What do you think about the manager? What do you think about these players? What would you do? What do you recommend in that situation? And he would have given his honest thoughts, I think. So there's going to be that chatter regardless. But I think it's quite significant, Erik ten Hag coming out in the press conference today saying, no, we're aligned on those things, aligned with INEOS. But that's just about, like I said, more the sort of general stuff. We want to be better. Of course they're aligned on that. I mean, if Erik ten Hag, I'm not aligned on that. I want us to be worse. No, I'm not. INEOS, and look, maybe he wasn't aligned with the Glazers, because the Glazers could give two shits. Maybe they weren't aligned on that point of view. Eric, I want us to be better. Glazers, well, we don't care. Well, that's great, but we really don't care at all. So, yes. Super chat here from Kishan says, Arteta finished 8th twice, and look at where they are now. Do we also not need to give Erik ten Hag time with the right structure, even if he finished 8th? Look, that's what argument people make. Give him time. The point that people will make, though, is that, hey, a lot of money's been spent. And you get into the territory of going, style of play and getting to where you want to go. Because this is the thing with Arteta and Arsenal, isn't it? Is his philosophy is very clear, isn't it? And initially, look, Arsenal weren't playing like that. You look at Arteta's early days. I mean, they won the FA Cup by playing three at the back, didn't they? And eventually, it had to get to the point where Arteta could bring in his own players to start playing the way that they play now. But there's no way you can say that Erik ten Hag hasn't had the ability at least to bring in some of his players, and a lot of the signings he's brought in haven't worked out. They haven't worked out. Though it's not totally his fault, I understand that, but he does share some of the burden of responsibility too. And look, with Arteta, I mean, it's funny, isn't it? Because you get Arsenal fans turning on him at the moment. I've seen Arsenal fans turn this season because they're like, we should be winning the league this season, and they might not even be in that conversation. So that's interesting too. With the structure, you kind of forget, don't you, that their structure changed. Arsenal, after Arsene Wenger, they sort of pivoted, didn't they, to a different structure, to a director of football who then left, didn't he? I mean, I'm not big up on my Arsenal history, so I can't say this is completely accurate. But they had a structural change, and then once again, everyone in that structure was completely aligned. So I don't think, it's not the case of just putting a structure around Erik ten Hag and that will work. It's putting a structure around him where everyone's on the same page, and that's going to be the key thing. Are they all on the same page? Is that it? Is everyone on the same page for what they want to do? And we'll find out. Certainly, won't we? But there you go, guys. That's the press conference for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. A reminder, there's going to be a preview tonight, 6 p.m, Flex and myself. Going to be previewing the game against Newport, FA Cup 4th round. Tomorrow, exciting bit of content for you tomorrow. Tomorrow, do I spoil it? I think it has been confirmed here because it was kind of sorted out live on the air. But maybe I'll leave it as a surprise. It's not on the sidebar, so maybe I'll leave it as a surprise. I will say tomorrow, 9 a.m, maybe tune in. Maybe interesting conversation. Yeah, maybe interesting conversation about, certain, like recent hires and stuff like that. The people that would know. And, maybe today's news is even more important. So We'll leave it at that. I mean, I'll say that. Now, when I do the preview of Flex later, he'll say what it is. Nevertheless, tune into the preview. Then you can find out. Anyway, guys, I'm out of here. Have a great Friday. I'll speak to you again very soon. I'm out of here. Peace.